Welcome to yet another update on a tier list, this time for 1107 patch. The last time we updated the tier list was for 1105. Luckily, in 3 days, we will be venturing within the 1107 news, class changes, and everything that's happening with the patch. If you guys haven't seen my last video about what exactly has changed in terms of classes, go check it out, because what I'm going to tell you right now might not make sense until you read the class changes, or at least understood them, okay? I would like to remind you once again, every time there is a changes to the classes, we update the tier list live on stream. And if, for example, the update is minor, then I only make YouTube videos and post it here for everybody to see it. Anyway, we're talking about average keys. We don't talk about the order first keys. Obviously, we try to take a key level between 12 to 15 into consideration. I also talk about lower level keys. I try to kind of take everything in, sample it, and find a mid-size so I can put it right there on the list for you. So yeah, keep in mind, this is going to be for tanks, healers, and DPS all combined together, so you guys can not scroll through 5 different videos. Anyway, let's begin. Alright, so first thing first, I don't think there's any spec that belongs to the D tier. A lot of underperforming specs were already buffed, so they went from D tier to C tier, which is, you know, obviously an improvement, but most of the people in pugs, they don't really care about what C or B or A tier, they only care about who are the S tier classes. But for the sake of the video, I'm gonna rank every single spec, okay? So let's begin. Starting with the healers and tanks, currently the worst healing specs are, but there's only one, Holy Priest. Holy Priest currently, in my opinion, is lacking the output to be matching against other healers. Also, to be fair with you, Discipline Priest, its brother spec is so much stronger that it would make just no sense for you to play Holy Priest. But if you are going to play it, keep in mind that Holy Priest is the easiest spec and the easiest healer in the game currently that will be answering to reactive capabilities. For example, if for example XYZ goes wrong, you know what, spam this ability, top everybody up, right? Disc Priest, for example, needs a bit more setup, ramp up time, kind of coordination, knowledge to be able to execute its in compared to, like, for example, Holy Priest. Restoration Druid, same thing, a bit more ramp up time because you are relying on host to heal rather than having a direct healing impact just like Holy Priest is. But again, healing capabilities have never been issued with Holy Priest. In fact, they got a minor buffs for 1107. I think Flash Shield got buffed by like 15%, and Holy Fire, which is their damage ability, got buffed as well by a little bit. I think, if I'll be honest with you, if they buff once again Holy Priest, whether healing or DPS, is gonna probably go to the B tier, and there wouldn't be any other C tier specs. Just like Disc and Holy both, for example, like the ability to control mobs, for example, no interrupt as well. So that's pretty much one of the biggest downside of having a priest in it. But then again, PI, damage contribution, and good healing are relevant, although the damage contribution compared to this priest is much lower. In terms of tanking, unfortunately, Brewmaster spec did not get any changes for 1107, which is actually very surprising. I was so certain that, you know, Brewmaster is gonna get buffed so it can get close to the other tanks, but I guess I was wrong. Brewmaster did not get anything at all. Currently, they are the squishiest tank, and they are the tank that relies the most on a healer, which is, you know, very, very bad, because the more the healer kills you, the less the damage it does, the less, you know, the slower the mobs die. Pretty much that's, you know, the correlation. In terms of mob control, Brewmaster is great, but they are squishy and they need a lot of healing attention. I would love them to be more tanky. The damage profile is not a problem. They do great damage output, but yeah, they're paper, unfortunately. There's no other healer or tank that belongs to the C tier, so I'm gonna proceed with the DPS right now. In my opinion, the biggest loser, I guess, from the C bracket, it's gonna be BM Hunter, which is actually a great spec for raiding. Unfortunately for Mythic Plus, their AoE is beyond horrendous. Sustained damage off cooldowns is currently one of the weakest, or the weakest across every single spec in the game, which is quite unfortunate given how popular this spec is in the rankings. Or I guess even if you're a casual player, you don't really care about Mythic Plus, BM Hunter is very popular within you as well, right? I would have loved to see some Mythic Plus adjustments, like buffing their AoE damage, while maybe nerfing their burst capabilities within the AoE department so it doesn't become overpowered. The single target is not an issue, has never been an issue ever since the start of the season. Unfortunately, cannot be said the same thing about their AoE output. Mob control decent. Again, they have a AoE stop, like the trap, knock-up trap, single target stun, scatter shot, binding shot, you know, trunk shot can help with the soothing targets, etc. So not too shabby there. Defensive wise, they're not bad at all. A lot of people thinking that hunters are squishy. Maybe back in the days they were, of course, but now as the expansions progress forward, they've added so many more buttons to press for you to mitigate the incoming attacks. So I don't think you are the tankiest, but you're most definitely not the squishiest. Going forward, in my opinion, so like originally Monk wasn't the second worst DPS, but just because the auto specs and classes got buffed, so naturally their placing goes a bit lower. I think Monk still belongs to the C tier even after the buffs itself. I don't think the AoE damage is up to par. Single target, again, just like BM Hunter, is not a problematic. I think it's rather okay there, but the AoE damage, especially off cooldowns, is just pretty much below Prot Paladin damage, which is actually kind of sad. Defensive part is, again, not an issue. They have several ways to cope with defensives. And most definitely one of the most fun specs to play. Unfortunately, numbers are not quite there for Windwalker Monk. I would love to see a little bit more adjustment on behalf of the AoE department while keeping their single target the way it is. Utility is great as well. That's not an issue too. So give more AoE damage to Windwalker Monks. Thank you. Next in line, Havoc DH. Havoc DH did receive some minor buffs, which will again solidify and improve the damage department. Unfortunately, just like Monk and BM Hunter, off your measured cooldowns, you are pretty much below tank. It's very depressing playing that spec. However, with cooldowns, especially when the pools are big enough and you can utilize them, they are amazing. You do good damage, good output, and most definitely not the tankiest spec, but the self-sustain because of the leech can help you recover from a lot of dangerous situations. Also, you have an access to immunity. Well, if you can call that immunity, I guess it is immunity, right? So yeah, that's a big plus. Mob control, amazing. Utility is also great. I love that. So a little bit more adjustments on behalf of their either single target, AoE department, or burst, or even more damage to meta, doesn't really matter, would probably elevate them to like B tier. I think they are a lot more suitable for like low level keys, mid level keys compared to high keys, in my opinion. Next in line is gonna be a rather surprising pick, but I'm gonna shoot for it. You guys can hate me, Fury Warrior. I think it's gonna be C tier pick. Unfortunately, they did not see any changes in the upcoming 11.07 patch, which I am very surprised to say that. Fury Warrior has been nerfed several times back to back in the past previous hotfixes / patches, and currently has still great burst damage, although sustained damage is capped and is on a lower end. Utility across all specs is one of the worst, which is very, you know, sad to say that, but again, Stormbolt, Shockwave, and Spell Reflect are the only useful things you can have. Again, disregarding Rallying Cry and disregarding Battle Shout, because Battle Shout only works for melees, right? Gives only attack power, and Rallying Cry is every 3 minutes. Mob control is, again, decent because of the stun, single target AoE stun. Intimidating Shout is kind of capped, but nonetheless, it's still a way to like stop casts from going through. But everything else kind of mediocre. I would love to see that. Them getting more utility in the future, perhaps something with like Intervene would be useful, or just anything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Outlaw Rogue next in line. Outlaw Rogue, again, no changes to Outlaw Rogue, but one of the features that a lot of people don't understand is because you have cooldowns all the time, they took away your burst. Outlaw has no, like, not a major burst, which pretty much leads to like the performance with like in lower level keys to be horrendous, right? Just because you're barely able to like snipe out a low heal target when, for example, you're playing against, let's say, Survival Hunter, he goes in, you know, shoots 5 Fire bombs, everything's dead, and you're just like still trying to ramp up with your Blaze Ray. Cap damage dealer, lack of burst, pretty much indicates for having troubles in like low level keys. The moment you start doing like 12s, 13s, 14s, and above that, then it really shines because the sustained damage from pack to pack does definitely add up, and you will be going up to the B tier. But if I have to consider keys below 12 and keys above 12, I would say you are pretty much within the upper C, lower B-ish is kind of a fair placement. Again, utility, just like Assa and Assa Rogue, great Mythic Plus performance. Has been lacking, unfortunately, the past couple of patches. So, love to see a little bit more love in regards to Outlaw, but a much better pickup for raiding than it is for Mythic Plus. That pretty much concludes the C tier, so let's jump right up. B tier is one of the most popular, in my opinion, because a lot of specs now are getting elevated from C to B, and some of the specs got nerfed from A to B, so that's going to be very interesting. Starting with healers first, and then proceeding. Actually, let's go tanks first. I think with tanking, it's just rather straightforward. The B tier specs for tankings are currently Guardian Druid and Havoc DH, and I'm going to talk about them individually. So let's first begin with Guardian Druid. Why is Guardian B tier? Guardian currently, first of all, they did not get any changes for the past couple of minor patches, which is very surprising. Guardian does most definitely lack the durability to be above B tier, especially against magical damage like heavy hitters like tank busters, etc. Especially like back-to-back. Let's say Downbreaker first boss, holy smokes, it's your nemesis. Like, you're getting decimated. So yeah, still things like this most definitely hurt you a lot. In terms of utility, again, mark it out, one of the most profitable utility for your group, because it adds 3% damage and 1.5% DR to the entire group, which is insane. CR and stampeding Warr could be very useful. In terms of utility, it's not bad at all. Self-sustain can be a little bit wonky, and damage department has never been an issue. If they were to get buffed in terms of durability, then I would say going to the A tier straight up, but because you're a little bit squishier than others, I would say B tier is fair placement. Next in line, Vengeance, very close in performance with Guardian Druid. Outside of cooldowns, you are definitely paper. During cooldowns, you can force bigger pulls, which can make uptime. Chaos Brand is actually a very huge benefit if you're having full caster comp, which currently casters are kind of like the kings. Well, casters and hybrid DPSs, like for example Enhance and Frost Decay, they are kind of hybrid because most of the damage is magical anyway, right? So mob control is one of the best, if not the best, currently in the game. Sigil of Chains, Silence, and Misery can help you crowd control mass area of mobs. So always a plus. Plus you have AoE stun, right, which is great. So overall, I think if this spec were to be tankier in terms of off cooldowns, then this would probably go higher. But for now speaking, I think B tier is a fair placement. And next one is going to be for Blood Decay. I think Blood Decay is likely a better pickup among those two. Blood Decay has a chance to get just literally one shot, the hierarchy goes, which is kind of laughable. But again, self-sustain on Blood Decay is very, very good. You don't rely on the hitters as much as, for example, Brewmaster or Guardian, so you can have a bit more control over that. Utility part, you don't provide any meaningful Mythic Plus or raiding buffs to the party, but your mob control is very good. From grips to stuns if you have to, blinding sleep as well, combat resurrection, and slappy hands, which can group up mobs together, or even mass grip, which is amazing. Stack mob with the same in the same area, mass slow, and that's it. GG, well played. Damage department on Blood Decay is also very, very strong, so that's very big plus on top of this. I would say, how would Blood Decay get out of the B tier? I don't think there's a way out unless you get to be further buffed, either to be more tankier than they are right now, or just to do more damage. But I think if I have to have a tier between A and B, let's say B plus or A minus, Blood Decay would most definitely be in that tier. But for the sake of the video, I don't want to do like B plus or A minus. I'm just gonna say B tier as well. About healers, I think in terms of healing, currently there are two specs that I consider B tier right now. Sorry, yeah, that's gonna be where is it? Holy Paladin B tier on top of the P-Evoker. Now, Preservation Evoker started the season very strong. A lot of people were saying S tier spec, etc. Unfortunately, P-Evoker hasn't seen any changes for the past 3 months, 2 months, Although they're still great pickup in raiding and Mythic Plus, unfortunately, augmentation takes the spot. So having a double agent spec there doesn't really work because they share the same utility. Also, P-Evoker, although it's great pickup and it's still likely gonna be A tier. The fact that you can, it requires your kind of group to understand how your healing works, makes it very wonky to play with, because if you're having a hybrid spec, for example, double melee, double range, then you kind of have to position yourself the way that you can, you know, make sure to like keep your tank up like in full and fully topped, while keeping the rest of your group as well healthy. And if you have, for example, 2 in melee, 2 in range, it's going to be very difficult for you to utilize your whole healing, toolkit, which is, you know, problematic. I don't think range is an issue, although again, they are one of the lowest range in terms of healing. I think damage department is never an issue. Healing is very strong, but the fact that you cannot make it work in pugs will definitely hurt you. So that is the only reason why I'm giving them B tier, not because they are, you know, weak or whatever. I would say in output, they're probably matching A tier specs, 100%. Holy Paladin received minor buffs, but I still believe Holy Paladin is a B tier spec. The output itself is not high enough to be considered part of the A tier. Also, unfortunately, Prot Paladin currently is meta, which means Holy Paladin shares similar utilities to Protection Paladin, so there's no reason for you to bring double Paladin. So right now, a lot less likely to be picked up over, for example, Restoration Druid, or let's say Disc Priest, or even Monk, by the way. Although, again, one of the best utility within the healers, unfortunately, sharing with the Prot Paladin might not be so much lucrative as you think it is. But nonetheless, output itself, especially healing-wise, I would say a bit on lower end compared to the rest of the healers. Damage-wise got better, so that's neat. If they were to get buffed either in healing or DPS, probably goes to A tier again. Or if not already, for example, A tier. Again, if I could give everybody A tier, I think fairly, these guys are very similar in performance to, let's say, Mistweaver and Restored Druid. That's why if I could put them to A tier, I would, but then it's gonna have 5 healing specs in A tier, which is kind of crazy. You know, you gotta shoot at least one of them. Anyway, get to the DPSs. Currently, in my opinion, there's few specs here, starting with the Demonology Lock going to the B tier. I think Demonology Lock haven't seen any meaningful changes for the past couple of weeks / months. Unfortunately, output is rather mediocre. From single target to AoE, just mediocre. Mid, you know. Mid is not bad, but mid is not good either. It's just mid. They're very tanky. They have a decent Mythic Plus utility, but the output is lacking to be put in A tier. Next in line, Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior, honestly, just like Fury, I'm so surprised. You didn't get anything. Zero. Nada. You know? Surprising, but nonetheless, I think you are still going to be a great choice for Mythic Plus, especially if you played a full melee comp because of your Battle Shout. Just like Fury Warrior, utility is rather poor, but at the end of the day, if you're having a full melee comp and Battle Shout is needed, then you're going to make it work. You know, damage is not an issue. I think you can be competitive to some of the classes on A tier, but I think overall, if you have to consider, for example, non-comp based rankings, that I think B tier is more fair than A tier. And I guess the whole package, because, you know, durability, utility, DPS, everything else counts in the rankings. Next in line, going to be Pharaoh Druid. Pharaoh Druid, actually, a lot of people think Pharaoh is dead. Unfortunately, I am sorry to disappoint. Pharaoh is not a dead spec, and is rather a decent choice the hierarchy goes. I think their single target can you know, get some more love, but the AoE package is most definitely not a bad choice. Utility, just like Boomie, amazing. But as I already mentioned, Boomie is so much better than Pharaoh, so it just makes no incentive for you to play Pharaoh, right? Just because your sibling spec is so much stronger. That's also a reason why you are not as popular compared, for example, to Balance Druid. But if you're talking about powers, I think you are just mid performance all around. Your AoE has a chance to go to the A performance, depends on the key levels here. Def Evoker got buffed recently. 4% overall buff and 20% buff to Pyre, which gives your sustained damage a massive bump, which will, you know, climb you from C tier to B tier. I think single target now and AoE are going to be much improved. Although utility-wise, you share the same toolkit as Aug Evoker, you still have a great toolkit there, right? Durability, I don't think there's been an issue. Twin Guardian Shield from Rescue, double wall, and you have a chance also to have a Zephyr if needed. I think that speaks by itself. I don't think you're bad defensively, right? I would say above average performance if you have to rate them this way, but You know, closing the gap, you know, climbing the rankings one at a time. Don't think the output is as strong to be put in an A tier, just because your sustain damage might not be as high as some of the classes here. Next in line, Fire Mage. Fire Mage actually went from the worst DPS to like mid / above average performance, which obviously is an improvement by itself. Single target was an issue by a mile. However, after the most recent buffs, well, not the one that got last week, but a month ago, their single target has improved tremendously. Big W. AoE again, never an issue so far. Great AoE output. On low level keys, it don't do fantastic. I would say rather poor, but the hierarchy goes, the more HP mobs have, the better you are gonna be. Also, utility wise, you have one of the best utility in the game, and you're also one of the tankiest specs in the game. Keep that in mind, okay? Arcane Intellect, for example, a very, very strong utility. Mass Barrier gives you DR to the whole party. And then you have things like, let's say, Dragon Breath, Short City, Crowd Control, Blasting Wave, or Blast Wave, whatever you want to call it. Again, once again, another form of crowd control, and so many more, plus a cheat dead, and so many more defenses to escape, you know, dangerous situations. So definitely good bump. The two most specs in a bit here. First is Aff LocK. Aff LocK did get some changes here, which I'm actually very, very happy with. I think they're more of like a rate adjustments than Mythic Plus adjustments, just because Hone damage increase, Unstable Affliction damage increase. Again, those speak for like better single target, better power damage in AoE, but doesn't really solve the issue. Affliction Lock currently has very frustrating way to do AoE damage, because your Vile Taint is 30 seconds cooldown, your Agony is 20 seconds duration, so every time you mismatch both, and especially in Mass AoE, have a chance, hey, do I manually reapply Agony to 8 targets, which is 8 globals, or do I just wait for like Vile Taint to come back and just spam, let's say, Malefic Ruptures or whatever. I think if they were to fix that issue, that would make sustain damage much better than it is right now, but off cooldowns, let's say off 1 minute, you are just tank damage. Literally tank damage off 1 minute. During minute cooldowns and 2 minutes, you are fantastic, especially if your tank can pull around your major cooldowns, will be great. And last thing is gonna be Marksmanship Hunter. That got actually quite buffed. Trick shots got buffed by a huge margin, which will drive the AoE even better than before, which makes the sustain damage better in AoE. Burst is gonna become even better. The single target itself when playing Mythic Plus build is actually rather poor, but that is the only disadvantage I could think of for MF Hunter. They are probably gonna be 8 tier specs for low level keys, while the higher the key goes, the lower it becomes because of their sustain damage not being as competitive as some classes on an A tier. If I have to be honest, if you're playing below 12 keys, let's say 10s, 11s, this is actually amazing spec. The higher the key goes again, the more other classes can catch up with you and essentially surpass you. But step in the right direction, this spec has climbed few rankings up. Alright, that's pretty much for the B tier. Moving up to the A tier. Now, if you're playing specs between A and S, congratulations. You're getting a lot more invites than usual. Starting with the tanks. The only tank in the A tier, Prot Warrior. Although you got no changes, Protection Warrior is still a solid choice for Mythic Plus. Tanky, great damage, and again, mob control is also great. That's it. Utility might not be the best, especially when you play with casters, because you're pretty much useless outside of like Rallying Cry and Spirit Reflect, but you know, the rest is there. I can't complain, okay? Healer wise, I would say the best performing spec in the A tier is Restoration Shaman, followed by Monk and the Restoration Druid. The Restoration Druid received yet another buff, which I'm very surprised and happy for. The Restoration Druid climbed the rankings from B tier to A tier simply because of the buffs back to back to back to back. Amazing utility, better healing damage, better healing profile, and once again, the damage profile has never been an issue, so I'm happy with that one. They're tanky, they're versatile, they have now good spot healing. Well, not as good as others, but decent spot healing. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can say about Restoration Druid. I guess further buffs could make them climb higher, but I guess that's, you know, that's time's gonna show that one. Monk seems similar to like Restoration Druid performance. I think healing profile on Monk is better than Druid in my opinion. Damage-wise, they could be competitive depending on the build you are playing, or I guess the setup you're having here. Mystic Touch could be very lucrative buff for any melee comp looking to get a monk in, because again, Enhanced Shaman, Rogue, or a DK, they will love you to have you because of that. So that's also a big option for you to get more invites. However, if I gotta be honest, if you're not Disc Priest, your invites are gonna be tanking big time. Unfortunate reality for any non-meta specs right now. The Restoration Shaman receives some quality of life changes that will most definitely not change anything for you, except that mana adjustments now might be better, slightly better than before, but that's, I think, more of like a quality of life rather than, you know, strength change. But if I gotta be honest with you, the Restoration Shaman is still a solid pick for Mythic Plus, both healing, both offensive and defensive. Outside of output, I don't think there's any. I mean, the main strength of Restoration Shaman is just having strong output, offensive and defensive. I guess, sorry, offensive and I guess defensive, right? Because healing can be defensive. Oh, again, healing wise, they don't have an issue there. Damage wise is where they lack compared to like Disc Priest, right? Mana regen as well, mana contribution is also a little bit wonky compared to Disc Priest. Hence why a lot of people prefer Disc Priest because of higher damage, arguably better utility, even though Disc does not have better crowd control on mobs. It does have better output, and the PI itself also contributes more towards the overall damage. Also, don't forget, in some keys, mind control is still very, very important. Like for example, Mist first boss and Necrotic Wake, pretty much crafter abuse is like must have a priest right now because that adds 1 or 2 key levels higher. So yeah. If I could change anything about Restoration Shamans, I'll give them more damage. That's gonna make them S tier. Straight up S tier in my opinion. Also, you already have a buff for the party, which is going to be Sky Fury, but because you play with Enhanced Shaman most of the time, you don't really need extra Shaman here as well. They share kind of the same utility, which is unfortunate. You want unique utility here. So that leaves us with a few DPS picks in the game. Starting from the bottom, I think Survival Hunter belongs to the A tier, even though you got nerfed a few times in a row. I think you are still an A tier spec because your short offensive cooldowns are like what making you outstanding compared to the rest of the specs. Single target is also amazing, and you have a great burst capabilities. Overall, A tier, especially when it comes down to low level, mid level keys, fantastic. Shadow Priest next in line. The higher the key goes, the better Shadow Priest becomes. They sync very well with caster comms. A lot of people think Shadow Priest is dying, but I believe that Shadow Priest can rise much higher than they are depending on the comp you're playing or the key difficulty. The problem with Shadow Priest here is the damage outside of their minor and major cooldowns is very, very low. I would say probably getting close to like B tier performance or even C tier performance. But if you can make it work during the major cooldowns, for example, I was about to say meta, your Shadow form, then you can really stand out. Also, Priest utility is great, but because you're playing Disc Priest, there's a lot less incentive for you to be picked up over Disc Priest. Unless you're playing off-meta heal, then the Shadow Priest becomes a lot more lucrative option to have compared to, for example, another Priest. So that's about it. Sub Rogue next in line, no changes to Sub Rogue, but Sub Rogue still have amazing AoE output, great single target, they are tanky, and most importantly, they can play with any setup. Ranged, hybrid, melee, don't matter to you. It's still great. One downside here is because Assa Rogue is stronger, you have a lot less options to be invited. But if you're given the chance here, you're gonna do fantastic. Even on 2 targets where previously were kind of whacking, right now you are, a great source of damage. All right, next in line, Arcane Mage, a spec that is notoriously good on high keys and kind of poor on low level keys. Arcane Mage, although has a high skills healing, it is a great option for Mythic Plus, especially given the current meta that is Aug Evoker, Prot Paladin, and Disc Priest. You sync very well with casters, giving your whole team more damage, more healing, and most importantly, better defensive options because of your shields, and you're generally tankier spec, so you can't really, die as often compared, for example, to, let's say, a Boomie, right? Much tankier than Boomie. Good prior damage, great damage of with like minor cooldowns. On a major oppose, especially when it's like several packs together, is where you really struggle. But other than this, you are a great choice. Destruction Lock, one of the specs most people sleep on. This is a spec that I would say really only shines on mid to high level keys. Low level keys is just atrociously bad. The ramp up effect on Destro Lock is actually real. By the time you start to have several rains of fire, mobs are already dead on low level keys. But 12, 13, 14s, especially if you pull big, Destruction Lock is a monster. It does insanely high damage. I would not recommend you to sleep on the spec, and if you're playing with the Aug Evoker, get Destro Lock in, get a Mage in, or get a Enhance in, and you're gonna see some massive AoE damage coming from Destro Lock. Don't sleep on the spec. Very good pickup. Also, tanky and has a CR. Speaking about CR, Melee, Retribution Paladin, the most famous spec in the game right now, has made its appearance in an 8 tier for the past 3 months. It's been an 8 tier, 2 months and a half. They would remain in an 8 tier, no changes for the Retribution Paladin whatsoever. The only thing that you don't have is prio damage while doing AoE. Very bad, but you don't have it. You're tanky, have amazing utility, have a great AoE damage. Single target could be a little bit off if you don't play ST talents, but prio damage is just dog shit. Every 30 seconds, minor cooldowns are also exceptionally good because that means you have damage for every single pack. One of the specs that I recommend every single beginner to play. Very easy to play, great for low level, mid level, high level keys, and very tanky. Noob friendly spec that is exceptionally good. Go and play Ret Paladins. And the final 3 specs in the 8th tier. First line is gonna be Frost Mage. Frost Mage did not get any changes, but Frost Mage is currently a solid ranged options for the remaining of season 1. Great single target, amazing AoE burst, good tank peeling, amazing utility, and quite tanky. What else do you need? Yes, you might not have the best utility in the game, the best AoE damage in the game, but everything else is top notch. I would say off cooldowns, especially off Icy Veins, you could find some struggling, getting in, but other than that, you are very solid when it comes down to pulling around major cooldowns and just bursting shit out, solid. Also, para damage when you do AoE with Ice Lances and Spikes in is a massive advantage for any team looking to bolster their damage profile. There are a few more specs in the 8th tier, I guess, starting with Ele Shaman and Unholy Decay. I'm gonna talk about that first. Ele Shaman did not get any changes, but Ele Shaman is in a great spot currently, especially if you do decide to play Stormbringer. Great single target, atrociously good AoE damage, very good sustained damage, utility one of the best in the game, party buffs as well. Unfortunately, Enhanced is in a better spot. It does better single target, better prior damage, and that is the only reason why I don't think Ele is as popular as a lot of classes should be if given the same package as Ele. Also, you're a little bit squishier just like Enhanced, but that could get countered by having, for example, Prot Paladin or Aug Evoker babysit you here. If given the chance, you're gonna do a lot of damage given the right circumstances. Same thing with Unholy. Unholy got the buffs here, and I guarantee you people will not play Unholy over Frost Decay. Just because of the perception of, like, I guess, puck players. But Unholy Decay currently is crazy good in Mythic Plus. One of the best AoE in the game, improved single target, very tanky, good mob control, has a combat resurrection as well, which is obviously amazing Mythic Plus utility. And most importantly, it's a spec that can work well on lower level keys, mid level keys, and high level keys. Now, although in my opinion it's harder to play Unholy than Frost Decay, it's harder to make it work, if you are playing in a full pre-made, Unholy will surprise you the most out of any spec in the game, just because of their, uncapped, well, I guess soft cap AoE damage, which is one of the best in the game. Alright. Now to the S tier. To your surprise, absolutely nothing has changed to the S tier. Neither of the classes that you're going to see right now get anything. which means for the remaining of Season 1, unless they get more changes, you are likely to see the same meta remain, the same 5 or 6 specs being OP. And I'm going to tell you why they're OP, okay? Starting with tanks, Prot Paladin received several buffs in a row in the previous patches, which improved their durability and mobility, damage, and mobility by a big time. The best utility in the game, compared to all tanks, they already had that before the buffs. They now go tankier, they do insane damage, and most importantly, a way to help your teammates by supporting them, whether defensively or offensively, depending on what you're having, you know, weapon buffs and absorb shields and lay on hands, for example, and sacrifice and freedoms and 3% DR, for example. Disease dispel, poison dispel, all this kind of stuff will help you big time. So having a Prot Paladin is kind of must if you want to push high keys. Disc Priest, exceptionally good healing capabilities, the best damage profile in the game, PI, stamina buff, rapture shields as well, could be very, very useful. Mind control. Again, mob control is rather weak, but that is the only disadvantage that I can tell you about Disc Priest. Your own safety can be in danger if you decide to use pain suppressions on your tank rather than in yourself, but other than that, I think S tier spec well deserved. Aug Evoker, again, I've told you since 3.5, 4 months ago before this date that Aug Evoker will remain one of the best DPS in the game. Many people were you know, thrown upon that statement, and they were saying like triple DPS back in the meta. As I already told you guys, Aug Evoker will remain one of the best options for the upcoming, I guess, the remaining of the Season 1. A way to support your teammates defensively, offensively, good mob control, great utility Mythic Plus. What else do you need? Enhanced Shaman, currently the best DPS in the game. You don't have a group that pushes high level keys without Enhanced Shaman. This spec does exceptionally well for low level keys as well. Great funnel damage, great prior target, great single target, insane AoE damage. The only thing that is bad about Enhanced is your defensive profile. You require a little bit more babysitting compared to, for example, like DKs or mages. But that is a good trade-off because, again, you're OP as fuck. And then obviously this is your must specs to play Mythic Plus, and these 3 are the optional specs. Some groups like to play with the Frost Decay, or like to play with the Balance Druid, or some with the Assa Rogue. Starting first with, I guess, Frost Decay, in my opinion, the tankiest among every single spec in the S tier right now. Has an amazing prior damage, very good burst capabilities every 2 minutes, good sustained damage too, good single target, and most importantly, a way to help your teammates, whether it's going to be AMZ or off-taunting or AMS extra shoots, for example, or grips, doesn't really matter. One of the best picks in the game right now, so enjoy while it lasts. Next in line, Boomkin. Amazing AoE, if not the best in the game right now, especially uncapped. Single target is an area where they might struggle depending on the pool or how long it will take, but everything else for you is non-problematic. CR, good pump utility, Mark of the Wild as well. Defensive wise has gotten better since the start of the expansion, but then again, there's a long way to go until it reaches S tier there. But everything else, you can't really complain about balance rate. And last but not least, Assa Rogue, a spec that I believe currently is one of the best builds in the game. Exceptional good AoE damage, good prior target damage. Single target could be an issue depending on the key levels once again here, but everything else is good. Mob control amazing, especially with the God of Silences here, and a lot of ways to like stop a cast like blinds and stuns, etc. One of the specs that I believe will need a little bit more defensive love if in some circumstances. So your Paladin, for example, or Priest might want to babysit the Rogue a little bit more, just like Balance Druid. So that is the only downside. So Frost Decay, ultimately the tankier among all those two. Hence why a lot of people like to play with Frost Decay, because Frost Decay does not need any defenses. They're just living like that, you know, natty, I guess. Anyway, boys, that was the update for 11.07. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys on stream tomorrow. Any questions, ask me in the chat. I got you. Bye for now. Peace out and have a good day.